Hello, everybody. We are at the end of the day show, and this is our fourth episode. We're still having a few technical difficulties getting everything set up and getting everybody on. Um, Tonight we have David Hastings from Tennessee, James Christopher from New Mexico, and Seth Panzer from Maryland, but he's having trouble getting on at the moment. And I'm Derek Sanders from Virginia. Tonight we are talking about the candidates for international. The IMC and ICS candidates. And to start off, we're going to have James Christopher give you a little bit on what the positions are and what they entail. So, James, would you like to talk about that?
I would love to. I'm actually going to read straight from the Congress bylaws and read what their job descriptions are. So, the International Master Counselor shall preside over and be responsible for the planning and conducting of the annual Congress session, encourage, assist, and participate in training opportunities for jurisdictional officers, attend and participate in regional conferences, maintain communication with active DMLAs and jurisdictional officers, attend national and international Masonic meetings and functions when invited, and publish an occasional newsletter for jurisdictional officers and Congress delegates. The International Congress Secretary shall encourage, assist, and participate in training opportunities for jurisdictional officers, attend and participate in regional conferences, maintain communication with active DMLAs and jurisdictional officers, attend national and international Masonic meetings and functions when invited, and assist in the publication of an occasional newsletter for jurisdictional officers and Congress delegates. Other officers shall perform such duties as are appropriate to their stations and may be assigned to them by the International Master Counselor, the International Congress Secretary, or the Congress.
Okay, thank you, James. Now, we're going to talk about who the candidates are and their credentials and where they come from. So, David, you have it right in front of you, don't you?
Yeah, I have the cordon right here.
You want to give us a little background on each of the candidates and who they are?
The candidates for IMC, if you got the DMLA cordon, you would know. It's we have Brother Quentin Cockerham. He is from Missouri. His dad is the executive officer of Missouri. He was a member of George L. Walters chapter. He served as Master Counselor from March 2011 to January of 2015. Some of his highlights are he has earned his PMC-MSA, his Lamp of Knowledge, his Distinguished Service Award. He is also an RD. He has his DMLA Letterman. He's a Chevalier, and he also has a Blue Honor Key with 21 stars, which is equivalent to 220 members he's brought into DMLA International. He also has attended several leadership conferences, including the DMLA Leadership Training Conference, the Missouri DMLA Leadership Summit, along with the regional conferences that have been in his area. Next, we have Brother Chandler Gordon from Phoenix, Arizona, who's also running for International Master Counselor. He joined Glendale chapter on October 4th of 2009. He became Master Counselor and served his term from April to October in 2012. He started his state line, going from State Senior Counselor to Deputy State Master Counselor, and he is currently serving as the State Master Counselor of Arizona. He's also the Region 7 Cabinet member this year for our DMLA Congress. Some of his award highlights include the PMC-MSA, the Blue Honor Key, the Lamp of Knowledge, and the Distinguished Service Award. He is an RD and a Chevalier. He has attended some leadership conferences, including the Pacific Coast DMLA Leadership Conference in 2011 and 2013. Next, we have Brother Caleb Rose for running for IMC from Tennessee. He's from Knoxville. He became Master Counselor of chapter in 2008. He joined shortly after I did in 2006, the same year I did. He started his state line, starting as our state scribe. He then became our state senior counselor, moved up the line to deputy state master counselor, and later become our state master counselor at Tennessee DMLA in 2012. He also served as the Region 3 cabinet member for the 46th International Congress. I took his place at the next one in Minnesota. Now we have the next brother Tyler Rojo. He's running for International Congress Secretary. He joined DMLA at J. McLean Mulder chapter and later became a dual member of Carmel chapter. He served as J. McLean Mulder Master Counselor from July of 2013 to July 2014. He's earned his PMCMSA, his Lamp of Knowledge, and he's an RD. He was named State Officer of the Year and Master Counselor of the Year for Indiana DMLA. He attended the Keyman DMLA Leadership Conference in 2014. That's what they said. Would you like to hear what they believe is the biggest problem facing DMLA?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to get into. So let's start out with the International Congress Secretary candidate, who is Tyler Rojo. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
I'm really not 100% sure on how you pronounce his last name, but in the country we call it Hiroho. It's probably Hiroho. I don't know what it is. When asked what he believes to be the biggest problem facing DMLA, he says the biggest problem facing DMLA is an ineffective use of the hierarchy of international officers. His solution to the problem is to use a trickle-down method where the IMC and ICS communicate with the cabinet members who then work with the jurisdictional officers.
Now, I have a question. Isn't that pretty much what it is right now? James, can you talk about what you think of that comment of using the trickle down? Because from my standpoint, the IMC and ICS work with the cabinet members as kind of like their boss, and they work with the jurisdictional officers. Am I wrong with that?
That was my understanding of how that office works. That almost sounds like the job description we laid out at Congress last year when defining the duty of the office.
Right. So, I mean, maybe it was like he didn't write what he meant to write or say what he meant to say, or do you think he just doesn't have the understanding of DMLA International that he should?
I'd like to definitely give the benefit of the doubt here and say that it just didn't come out like he wanted to say it.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's what I've talked about with some people. And he did. He does have a strong knowledge of DMLA. That's without a doubt. And he is the only officer running for this position. So, he's gonna get it. But
while you talk about that, Derek, we have the drop-down effect, which is being brought up this year as legislation for this session, and I'm really not sure what I'll tell you right ahead. I'm not a big fan of the dropout. I feel like it lessens the International Congress Secretary, because now they're supposed to be equivalent is how the job duties describe them. However, if you do drop down, now you're saying IMC is more important. Why would we ever have anyone run for ICS if IMC is way up here? So what my thing is, and y'all will see it international this year, I'm going to propose an amendment to this drop down, and it's going to state what I'm wanting is, instead of making it where every year the person can run from International Master Counselor and go to International Congress Secretary, I'm going to suggest, why don't we make it on years where we only have one person running for International Congress Secretary, that the people that lose the running for International Master Counselor can drop down. This isn't to go against whatever brother's running, but it's to state that we've had years where we've got stuck with a candidate that preferably wasn't the best for the office, and I feel like we're pinning ourselves against a corner, having to accept something and not having a say so in it. If we don't pass, where the people that ran for IMC can run for ICS if only one person ran. This way we have a multitude of options to choose from, and we will be able to better what we believe for DMLA International.
Going back to James, what do you think is the reason nobody seems to want to run for ICS compared to IMC? Because we have 3 candidates for IMC. Last year I know we had 4, but the ICS only has 1 or 2 a year, it seems. From my standpoint, it's seen as the lower, even though they're supposed to be the same, and people want that position. But isn't it kind of like DSMC and SMC, where it gives you that valuable training to move up to IMC, even though they are equal, but it kind of feels like the IMC is up there.
I think in that case it's more of, I think it falls down to the job title actually. There's more people who would want to be master counselor than secretary. I think it's just the way it's worded, because even though they have almost identical job descriptions and what they would be doing, it seems like more people would rather be, you know, the head of the body than the secretary of the body. At least that's the way I view it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of it is the job description and kind of what people have believed it to be in the past and how it's evolved, the two positions since they were created. Now going on to the other candidates for IMC, can you give us a little bit on their statements, David?
Yeah, since I started with Brother Cockerham first, I'll work the list backwards this time. Brother McCaleb Rose, when asked what he believes to be the biggest problem facing DMLA, his response is, the biggest problem facing DMLA is recruitment for 12 and 13-year-olds. His solution to the problem is to develop a membership program that would help us appeal to that age group. We next have Brother Chandler Gordon, who said, when asked what he believes to be the biggest problem facing DMLA, he responds with, I do not believe that the most pressing aspect of membership for DMLA International is initiating more members. Rather, I see the problem as retaining the new members during their first year in DMLA. He intends to fix this by establishing a rewards program that rewards the attendance of new members at events. Next is Brother Cockerham. When asked what he believes to be the biggest problem facing DMLA, he responds with the biggest problem facing DMLA is that we are not a household name. We are unknown to the general public, and therefore we fall short of being so great. He plans to fix this by utilizing the program that he has worked so well for Missouri.
Okay, so going back to the first one, and he said that the biggest problem is recruitment for 12 and 13-year-olds. What do you think about that, David? And is that the main issue? Is that in general a big issue?
Well, 12 and 13-year-olds, yes, I do believe it is. If you look at most of our states right now, our problem is the 12 to 13-year-old range. If you look, Tennessee, for example, we have this massive age gap. We have a couple 12, 13-year-olds, but once you start hitting that, most of our guys are 17 to 21. So there's a big age gap, and we've really got to start filling it in. And every year at session, we always emphasize on how everything we do is to affect the 12 and 13-year-olds. We're not there for the 19, 20, and 21-year-olds. We're there for the 12 and 13-year-olds to make sure that DMLA is as good as it was for us, so that it'll be that way for them. And, I mean, I know we have to change with the times and stuff, so I believe a membership program for 12 to 13-year-olds is good, but we've got to find a way to make it where it expands past the 12 and 13-year-olds. I mean, I know that no membership program will work for any area completely. I mean, really, we need to figure out what membership program works and try doing it internationally and fine-tune it in the different areas.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, the 12 to 13 range is sort of an attempt at target marketing and finding just like focusing on them and not the broad range, because a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, they're into totally different things. I mean, there's some of the same things, but they could be in totally different places in the world, well, across the country. I know somebody who lives here right outside D.C. versus somebody who lives in the country in Virginia, totally different aspects of life. I mean, it's really rushed over here and it's really relaxed over there. And we have a tough time getting 12 and 13-year-olds because we don't necessarily focus on an age group. And we have so much going on. But then the chapters down in the southwestern region of Virginia, they have kids who are 12, 13, 14, and that's like their entire chapter, which is great because they get in kids those age, but you don't see the older age. So just focusing on 12 and 13 kind of excludes everybody else. And I mean, I'm state master counselor and Region 2 cabinet member. I joined when I was 17 and a half. So whatever this is going to be wouldn't have attracted me. So I think it's important to focus on all ages, but have a targeted audience like that, like what I believe he's attempting to do. Going on to the next one, which is Chandler Gordon. He said that he believes that the most important issue to face is initiating more members. Sorry. Yes, to initiate more members. Not to initiate more members. Excuse me. Rather, he sees the problem as retaining the members. What do you think about that, Christopher? James Christopher?
Well, just in listening to both of these candidates' responses to that question, it seems like they're going off what they experienced as a region. So I mean, in the eastern part of the United States, it may be more common to have problem with the 12, 13-year-olds, and here in Region 7, a big problem is retention, because we have lots of 12, 13, 14-year-olds here in New Mexico, but our older members don't tend to stay around as much. So I mean, I can definitely see where he's coming from in that, but I don't think it's as much of an international thing as we make it out to be.
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement a lot, because it's sort of a chapter thing that needs to be focused on, because international can put out like legislation or whatever to say this is what you need to be doing to get members to stay, but that doesn't necessarily help each chapter. I think that's the point where you need to have the members and the advisors working together closely, especially the advisors, and say, hey, this is how we used to keep kids in, or this is something that another chapter is doing to keep kids in, and maybe it can work with our particular chapter. I think international needs to guide the advisors more, because I don't think they do that enough, in my opinion. And you need to guide the states by saying, we have this amazing chapter, and this is how they're keeping members in. Maybe it can work for you. Not necessarily an international, this is what you need to do. David, do you have any thoughts on
that? Yeah, I talked to Brother Gordon on his retention program, and I like the idea. What he's focusing on is the idea that our main problem is trying to get guys. I mean, y'all have probably noticed it. Once you initiate a guy, they're generally interested for 2-3 weeks, and then they go off, and they don't come back. And that is a big problem. I've seen where you get one guy comes in, gets initiated, you never see him again. So he has a way of rewarding the guys for coming and for trying to get them more involved and to make them want to feel wanted and want them to stay, which I think is a big problem that we have, is that we don't include them enough. And we see that in our Masonic bodies also, that we initiate a guy and then he walks out the door trying to understand what happened, and we didn't do our job fully. We didn't make them feel welcome enough. We didn't tailor to the way that they want to do things. I mean, one chapter may be all about sports, and all the guys are about sports, and everyone they initiate's about sports. However, let's say you get that chapter that's all about sports, and you got this guy that likes to play cards. I mean, you have to find a way to tailor to everyone, and I think that's one of the main problems we have, is we don't tailor enough to the people. So maybe I see Chandler's way of retention is also maybe come up with a type of lesson plan to teach the guys on how to make others feel more welcome into the order, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've seen where there's just been a really, I won't say bad, but not the best master counselor. And it's kind of forced people to leave. Not necessarily like they join and say, oh, I don't like this, they leave. But they try it, and the chapter isn't doing many events, or the people just don't know their ritual who have been there for a while. And the other kids who come in see it and say, well, what's the point, really? If there was a standard of kids in that chapter, like showing they know the ritual and they can plan events, then they're going to be like, I want to be like them. I want to do stuff with them. But that's what hurts a lot of chapters, in my opinion. And what you said about people joining and then leaving right away is a lot like Masonry. We model ourselves after Masonry, but I don't think we want to model ourselves out of that part of Masonry. And I'll get to legislation a little later about something that we are voting on that kind of deals with that model. But getting those members to stay right away and stay interested is very important. So something I do is have those kids plan an event with me right away. The first thing they do when they join is to plan an event. I'll ask them, what do you like to do? And they'll say, I like to go fishing, or I like to play video games. I say, all right, let's plan this event together. And that gets them started, and that gets them actually working with the chapter. And that's something any chapter member can do, and it's important to do. So let's go to the third one now, who is Quentin Cockerham out of Missouri. He said when asked what he believes is to be the biggest problem facing DeMolay, the biggest problem facing DeMolay is that we are not a household name. We are known to the general public, and therefore we are not known, to the general public, and therefore fall short on being so great. James, Christopher, when you finish yawning, what do you think about that statement about being a household name?
That's one of those timeless phrases that's pounded into DeMolays again and again. We are not a household name, and it's a problem. So that is always pounded into DeMolay's head, and that's just a repetition of that phrase in my mind. But I do agree with his view in that we are not a household name, and that would be a good change to make that. But
so he mentioned Missouri and what they did and how he wants to use that. Have you heard much about that plan or what they did in Missouri? Because
I've honestly heard nothing about it. I don't know what they do. I know they have huge membership classes. I'm not sure how the retention is from those classes, but I know they have huge classes. So it is possible that DeMolay could be a much more household name there, but I'm not sure.
Right. To me, it kind of sounds like what they've done there, which I'm not saying is good or bad, is more about quantity rather than quality of membership and the retention. They've definitely done a big thing on getting numbers. Without a doubt, they have like the best track record in the past couple of years on getting new members. But the retention, which was mentioned by Chandler Gordon, is really important. And how do we fix that? I mean, each of these problems is really important, and there's no one problem that's the biggest, in my opinion, except that there are so many problems, and all those problems combined is the biggest. And you guys know I've ranted on that to you guys. Which problem do you guys believe, from what they said, is the most important, starting with David?
Really, I think all these somehow go hand in hand together. The way I'll start with Brother Cockerham's statement about talking about being a household name. If you look at how DeMolay was in the beginning, it was pretty much a straight Masonic body. All the members of DeMolay generally seem to be somehow involved with Masonry in some form or fashion. Their fathers were Masons, their grandfathers were Masons. And they had a Masonic lodge down the road that had a community event, and they all came out. If you look at it, there's been a major transition in DeMolay. We've gone from most DeMolays that join being related to Masonry somehow, compared to people that had no Masonic relations getting into DeMolay, to now it's mainly guys with no Masonic relations getting into DeMolay, compared to Masons bringing their kids in. So yes, while the household name works a lot, I think the support we've gotten has changed in a way. We've gone from more of them bringing in members to monetary and giving us places to meet and everything. I mean, the Masonic body still support us, but I believe there's a major difference between the way they support us. They support us in the way we mainly need now, and our problem is we've got to figure out how to then promote ourselves to become the household name we once were. Retention is a big problem with that. If we can't keep guys in, then how are we supposed to be able to spread the word of DMLA and get new members? So I think they all go hand in hand, and if you can build one up, you can build the others up.
Yeah, a funny thing to me is that you look at like YouTube videos of back when Eisenhower and Truman were involved with DMLA, and you see them go on radio shows, or I think it was Truman who went on the radio show, and they gave Dad Land gave him an award, or he gave Dad Land an award. It's been like 2 years since I saw that video, and the guy talking on the show was like, so tonight we're talking about DMLA, which I'm sure all of you across the country know that name. And watching that is kind of makes me laugh because now nobody knows it. The only time you can go up to somebody and there's a chance they might know it is when they're 50 years or older. And I've done events with volunteering with my church, and they say, "Who are you guys?" And we say that we're DMLA. The old guys are like, "Oh, I've heard of that," or "Oh, I was a member of that." Literally, out of 10 older people in my chapter, 3 of the guys who were there from my church were members of DMLA. 3 out of the 10. And they didn't even know it existed anymore. They thought it was gone, which is definitely something we need to work on. Now, there's one more candidate who wasn't on the cordon, which I don't know why that is, and that's Chandler. Wait, never mind. Why did I say that? I was thinking Chandler was somebody else. I don't know. But I want to talk about Chandler because I have his David, shut up. Because I have his stuff right in front of me. And first, he talks about regional cabinet members and securing a voice for DMLA. And then he has a retention program, which is his main drive in his statement, laying the foundation for growth. Then he has a chapter grant program, Money Where It Matters. Branding, every young man should have a shirt from the DMLA Moore store. And international statistics, providing factual improvement, is his last one. So, out of those things, grants, retention, the cabinet members, retention is his big focus as the main problem, not focus overall, but the problem. And he doesn't have anything that's like getting in new members, like the other candidate I talked about. Do you think that's an issue? And we'll go to James first.
Yeah, I kind of like to build on what David said, and that you kind of do need to focus on all of those aspects, because if you're not getting new members, that's a problem, but if you're not retaining members, that's another separate problem. But I'm not sure how it's going with the grant program he's proposing, but if it's open to both membership recruiting and membership retention programs, I really support that idea, and I think it could really work for helping that aspect of his plan. But I do think the problem is not addressing any recruitment in his plan.
Now you talked about the grant program, and I'll say the statement for that. It says, as the international arm of DMLA, it is our job to support the chapters that we ultimately represent. As such, financial assistance becomes a crucial part of consideration for the international arm of DMLA. And his proposal is to work to create a chapter program, a grant program, in which chapters may apply to use in strictly membership activities, so prospect parties, induction classes, etc. The program is for chapters in sponsored Squire manors only, and cannot be applied for jurisdictions. The reason for this is because the chapters of DMLA International are where membership happens, where the money would be best used and where the money would have the most effect. Any chapter in DMLA International can apply for it, and after the form is submitted, the International Board of Directors will approve or not approve the grant, and the money will be funneled to the chapter following the guidelines laid out by the programs. David, what do you think about a grant program going to the chapters, and has it worked in the past?
Well, I probably had the most experience in this on the international level out of the 3 of us, because we tried this 2 years ago. And I'll tell you, I like the idea, but the problem is the funding. As y'all probably remember, 2 years ago we tried the membership program, and we had maybe, I want to say, 20 submissions from jurisdictions, regions, districts, chapters. Our problem was we didn't have the guys that really were interested in it, and then the problem came down when some people were asking for $1,200, $1,300, and I'm like, I can get this done for $2,300. The problem is, after you hit these guys all asking for certain amounts, is where's the money coming from? We had to sit here and try finding a way to allocate a budget separate just for this. And the problem is, DMLA International has money, but the problem is our money's tied up into different things, and we have to do it. I mean, we pay for so many different things that we have to find out where this money's going to come from without taking away from our other programs, which is what we'll have to work on. And so is it going to be a whole different foundation grant money coming in as so much money raised from this certain point in time to go to that membership program? Should we raise dues $5 and that extra $5 goes to this grant? The problem is we've got to find out where the money's going to come from, and money's a big deal. I mean, we spent a lot of money just trying to do the Kingdom of DMLA, and that was a problem. But our thing is we've got to figure out where we're going to get the money and how we're going to allocate it in the proper way.
That's a fresh wound still. It's a fresh wound. I think that's a really great point because the money aspect is something that's going to be faced a lot this session. One of the proposals is getting a standard membership dues across the country, and in my state, the state pays for it. The state pays for each member, and before that, and that started like 3 years ago. They wanted to start doing that because we have money from our foundation. Before that, the chapter dad or chairman in my chapter paid it out of his own pocket, so no boy had to pay. Because the way most of us see it in my state is that it's not about the money, and the money will drive people away. Seeing that they have to pay will drive them away. Kids who can't afford it won't be able to pay. And of course, the chapter might step up and say, hey, we'll pay for you. But when you get in, say, 20 kids into a chapter and none of them are showing up, you're not going to pay for it. And then it gets rid of the numbers on your book and it screws things up, in my opinion. I had an advisor come up to me at our Luray degrees this past weekend and say he's going to go, he's a member, an active member of the International Supreme Council, and he's going to say to them, after he comes to us to see if we want him to say that they should not make DMLA members pay for the mistakes the International Supreme Council made in the past. And he thinks that a lot of the reason why they want $19 to start is because of the money they wasted. And I mean, I agree with him. James, do you have any thoughts on the money issue?
I'll say this was always an issue. I mean, we've had issues with trying to fund programs or pouring the wrong amounts of money into programs, and they end up not working or flopping, as we've seen in the past few years. But I mean, it's such a strange concept to see exactly what you're saying. The members paying for the larger body's mistakes. It's so dumbfounding to me.
Right. A lot of what their defense in that is because the other organizations have dues. Well, the other organizations also do a million things wrong, and we're not going to follow them in that step. Why is this the one that we want to follow? But money overall is a major issue in DMLA. The wasting on Kingdom of DMLA, the wasting on many different efforts. Why do you think that's not an issue that they talked about in their statements? Is that a major issue for anyone? Can you tell that? We'll go to David. Do you think that's a major issue, and has any of them addressed it properly?
I'll defend DMLA International on one thing. It was about in the 60s we went away from a yearly to a lifetime. membership. I mean, at one time we did have yearly dues, and now we're back to lifetime members. However, when we, Derek, you probably remember this, Dad Sprague, when we had our cabinet retreat, told us how much we spend per member based off of insurance every year. And that's $12 per member we're losing. That, let's say we have 7,000 to 8,000 DMLAs that are active within the United States. We're paying $12 for them. Now think about the next 15,000 to 20,000 DMLAs you have. You're spending $12 on them, and you'll never see them again. So you're spending. By the time they're done, you've probably spent $500,000 in their DMLA lifetime career, and you never got any benefits. They never got any of the benefits out of us. So why are we paying for them? This would help us clear up the books. Would help us understand who's actually involved in DMLA. Now back to the money. Yes, we have done some problems, but Kingdom of DMLA, we'll go with that one. It was marketed to us wrong from the company. They told us $1 million and we were done. And then they told us, it's $100,000 a year for maintenance. And then I remember watching, and then none of the guys were involved in it. I mean, the guys all acted like they want to be involved, but the problem was we did not have them young men being involved in it like they should have been. And so you saw that last two-month rush where the guys were trying to prove the Kingdom of DMLA is good. The Kingdom of DMLA is good. I mean, look, we just crashed the server because we had so many guys log on. It's like, guys, if you really were so heartfelt about the Kingdom of DMLA and you wanted it to succeed, why didn't you invest your time in helping it succeed the first 2 months instead of the last 2 months? I mean, the problem is, while DMLA does come up with great ideas, DMLA International does, a lot of the problem comes back to the membership. We do not support DMLA International and what they fund, and that's the problem, that we sit here and we say one thing, and then the problem is we don't do it as a membership. So while DMLA International, and keep in mind this is the Congress agreed to the Kingdom of DMLA, one of the Kingdom of DMLA coordinators was one of my state master counselors, Brother Austin Watson, and he was a region cabinet member. He was the Kingdom of DMLA coordinator down here and was trying to help build it up. But none of the guys went with it. And maybe our problem is we tell DMLA International we want one thing. And when DMLA International, after many years of us hitting them over and over the same thing, we keep asking them for it, and finally they give in. They finally allow us to. And then we just like, oh, never mind. You spend $1 million, but we don't care anymore. I mean, that's our problem. Is we're sitting here. They invest in us in some ways. I mean, yes, they do have money that could be spent elsewhere on things that I don't agree with. But there's a lot of issues, and the biggest one, when everyone mentions, is Kingdom of DMLA. And I'm not going to take that one on DMLA International. DMLA International did what we asked them to do. It comes back onto the Congress, and it comes back to the jurisdictions, and it comes back to the chapters. We did not support it, and we lost $1 million for DMLA International. It was the young men that did not do their job.
Okay. Now going to credentials, kind of back to credentials. Chandler Gordon is the only one who is a cabinet member or has been. Do you think that is an important...
Well, Brother Caleb Rose was cabinet member.
Was he? What? Sorry. What cabinet?
He was the 46th. He was under Prescott. And then I was under Bob and James.
That's right. I knew that, and I totally forgot about that. Because we discussed how him being out of the office for a little while, 2 years, kind of can affect that. So we have one, Chandler Gordon, who is a current cabinet member. He's up to date with everything that's going on. 2, Brother Rose, who was a cabinet member, but it's been 2 years since he's held that office. And then 3, somebody who's a state master council. Which, based on their qualifications, which do you think has the most, who's the best qualified? James, do you want to talk about that?
I think it's kind of hard to pick, who's the most qualified based on kind of like those things. I think qualifications should be based on how well they lead as individuals and how well they are able to communicate with Deamlays across the board, not just the titles and things that they've earned. Just it's how they lead person to person. Their styles is what really.
Right. I agree with that. I agree with that style of leading. But do you think that the experience that you gain in that cabinet position is important during the IMC or ICS term?
I think you can have a major play in that you've seen how things work on a larger scale rather than just in your own state or within your jurisdiction or however local it may be. So I think being part of a regional team does give you a bit of an edge up in once you're actually elected to the office, just because you know what to expect.
Right, and that's a really important thing in my opinion. But I do definitely agree with the leadership style, who is the most motivating to the rest of the cabinet, to the rest of the state master councilors, and who's the most personable, in my opinion, is important. And though it's not based on popularity, of course, it's based on credentials, on the style of leadership, and the track record. But definitely that personality is important as well. There's a lot of things. It's like running for president, except there's no campaigning. David, what do you think about the credentials of being a regional cabinet member and campaigning? Because I feel like you'll have something to say on that.
Well, I'll just go ahead and say I had a part with the campaigning being taken away last year. Campaigning, I do believe, in some ways, is good. However, it draws away from the brotherhood after a certain point. I mean, yeah, okay, put a poster up showing that you're running for IMC. I mean, meet and greet and talk to the guys. But don't sit here and start bad-mouthing some of the other guys running for office, because we had a lot of that mudslinging going on last year, and you start going away from a brotherhood to just going to straight American politics. Now, when we talk about cabinet members and whether or not that really matters on becoming becoming IMC or ICS, if you notice, last year we had Brother Sonny Atwall versus Brother Hawkins running for IMC. Brother Atwall was a cabinet member, but Brother Hawkins beat him out. And then if you turn around and look, Brother Maddox, our International Congress Secretary, was a cabinet member, and he was running against someone that wasn't a cabinet member, and then he won out. So really, there's really no good track record if you look at it for if I'm going to become cabinet member this year, and then I'm going to be IMC next year, or I'm going to be International Congress Secretary. All I see the cabinet position really is, if you're even going to mention you're a cabinet member while running, I expect to see at least a good track record and what you've done to better DMLA International, because all cabinet member really is you do what the International Congress Counselor and International Congress Secretary need. If you need to go to a meeting down in Florida, you go. If you need a meeting down in Georgia, you go. You represent them. You help run a committee for international. You do whatever you can to better DMLA International, and you get more responsibility. But we've had brothers that in the past that have been in these cabinet positions that didn't have the responsibility needed, and that's been a problem. And so it'll come down to Brother Gordon will have to show what he did as a cabinet member, which I've seen some of his work. He's done a lot. It'll come down to Brother Caleb, what he's done as a cabinet member, and then it'll come down to Brother Cockerham will have to show what he's done as the State Master Counselor and how he was able to focus, and he had to show and compare it to an international. What I'd like to see is a testimony from a member in their jurisdiction of each of these three guys, and understand that way I can see how they were in the home area. I want not an endorsement from someone in their jurisdiction, but rather I'd like to say, look, Brother Cockerham did this, this, and this, and helped improve our state. Brother Rose did this, this, and this, and improved our state. Brother Gordon did this, this, and this, and improved our state. I mean, if you can look how they led their jurisdictions, you'll understand how they lead international.
Now, what you were just saying is what we want to see, and so we'll go to James with this. What do you want to see out of the candidate that gets the IMC and ICS position?
Really, what I want to see is I want to see them bringing it home. I want to see them not just being in the office, but bringing that skill set and that leadership home to the local chapters, to local DMLAs everywhere, and showing them how great DMLA is and how great it can be if they apply themselves. I want to see him inspiring locally and internationally.
And now, David, what do you think? What do you want to see? And I know you just talked about it a bit, but what do you want to see as something combined? This is what I want you to do. This is what I want to see happen in DMLA.
I think one of our main problems we've had in the multiple years in the past is the IMC and ICS have just been a figurehead, and they haven't brought as much to the table as you'd expect from the office. Our problem is a lot of the ones in the past have just really been more of the meet and greet. I'm going to go say a speech and motivate everyone. It's, yes, you want them to go. It was brother James Conner, when he's international master counselor, came to the state of Tennessee, and he motivated me in DMLA and made me want to move up, and that's one of the reasons I'm still so involved as I am. You have the factor where you want them to be the spokesman and you want them to get the interaction and build up. But I want to see them propose legislation. I want to see them make committees better, come up with great programs for DMLA, help build DMLA as an international organization. And our problem is you have DMLA Bolivia, DMLA International, DMLA South America, DMLA the Philippines. But our problem is we're not united. We don't talk to our brothers that are international. We don't have any programs to help us talk to the brothers internationally, and I'd like to see some way to help develop these programs. We do have already.
You know, that's a really good point. The connection to guys out of state and out of country isn't there. I mean, I talk to a lot of guys in Brazil or the Philippines, or somebody who I met over Clash of Clans from Peru who was going to come up. And he's really excited to meet me, and I'm excited to meet him. I've had national master counselors from Brazil come up, and I've had like a lot of people I've talked to from other countries, but it's because they reach out to me, not because DMLA helps us in a way to do that. So I totally agree with you on that. And now, finally, just to end the show, let's tell the viewers what session really is and what we're doing next week. I know I start my trip in 2 days, Thursday. I'm on the road for 2 weeks, going down up to New York and then down to Orlando. But do you want to tell them what it is we're doing in Orlando this year? Start with James.
So the way I view it is, session is our way to make ourselves heard to the International Supreme Council. We vote on some of the legislation that's proposed to them, and we give our thoughts on it, and we take a vote as a Congress based on what our jurisdictions want and what we believe that the youth in our state would want. So they take our vote into consideration, and they apply that to how they vote on that same issue.
Yeah, that's a really, really important part of that, is getting the voice of the members. At this past degree on Saturday at Luray, we had guys from Delaware, North Carolina, Virginia, and the State Master Council of Rhode Island, Justin Cargill. It was really good to go around the room with a ton of people there and hearing 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds talking about the call items. Like, I never expected that, but they're talking about them, they're discussing them, and they want their voices heard. And so we say, come to any of the caller holders, or come to me in particular, and talk to us. Tell us what you want to happen, and we'll vote for you, because that's why we are in these positions, is to help the brethren in our states and our jurisdictions. David, is there anything else you want to talk about session? Is there any point we missed about that?
Really, for the people that really don't understand what session is, I like to reference it to an international conclave. It's like your state conclave, except 100 times as big and it's 100 times as cool. I mean, it's also a great time to connect and meet other brothers. I mean, I know probably by this time next week, I'll have another 100 friend requests on Facebook. It seemed that way last year. Another 100, 200 people wanting to become friends on Facebook, which is great because I get to see what my brothers across the country are doing, and I get to meet awesome brothers like Max Carter, Darian Coons, Derek Sanders, James Christopher, Seth Panzer, but I already knew him last year. But I like how you pointed out, Derek, that you had the 12 and 13-year-olds talking about that. This reminds me of a piece of legislation that I wrote up for this year. And as of now, only delegates are allowed to write and propose legislation to the Congress. I've proposed a piece of legislation, and I hope it passes, and I'd love to have y'all support, where any member of DMLA, advisor, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, senior DMLA, active member of Spring Council, all these people can propose legislation to our Congress. The only thing is, if they want it, they can propose it, but the only people that can speak on behalf of it at session and vote on it are still the delegates. However, the International Master Counselor can call on them as a friend to the Congress, and they are allowed to speak about their legislation and see why and tell everyone why they want it passed. And I'd love to see this passed because now we're giving them more a chance to say what they want. If they want to propose a bill of DMLAs doing anti-bullying, I'd be more than happy to sign it. If they want to say, I want to declare this day DMLA International Game Day. I mean, just other examples. I mean, I'm up. You never know what you're going to get from these 12, 13-year-olds. I mean, they have great perspectives. I mean, instead of my 21-year-old, I might be thinking about we need to do this. Compared to they may notice something that needs to be done. And if they mention it to me, I may not think it's as worthy. But if it's brought up and they can prove a point to me at session, I can understand and better know why they are behind it and see that they're so motivated for it. And I'd love to have it.
It's a great point, and absolutely on the show, I will give you our word of the day, which is Congress. And if you have a meeting this week, use that word, and then when people ask about it, when you open the meeting, talk about it, even if they don't ask. Tell them what we're doing in Orlando, and tell them how they can get their voices heard, because that's really important. DMLA is all about the members, and if you don't step up and say this is what I want to see happen, then it's never going to happen. So use that word, Congress, and thank you for watching. Please spread the word. Tell people to watch next week. And we will be broadcasting from Orlando. So thank you very much for watching.